Bienvenidos, Fright fans, and welcome to the horror show. I am Jaime En Fuego, here to present a special encore presentation that originally in 2015 was seen on my then YouTube channel, Jaime En Fuego, which was for a program called ENFUEGOTAINMENT that is in the process of a relaunch. But we thought that for the month of October, the best thing that we could do was bring the entire series coverage of the 1980s and 90s Tales from the Crypt HBO television show over to the horror show, show it to a larger audience so that they can appreciate all of the hard work. Man, did I bust my ass for that month or so, getting every single one of the 93 episodes done and reviewed and spoken about. We did a little of my little trope at the time, which was Bueno, Malo, Feo, which is a good episode, a bad episode, and an ugly episode. I am taking these 3 at a time, and then also a special 3-episode final edition covering all 3 of the films. Yes, there are in fact 3 films. So join me here as we jump into a little bit of a horrific relic that I am very proud to show all of you guys. So until next time, stay scared. Bienvenidos, fans of everything fright-tastic. You have Jaime En Fuego here for this special October presentation of ENFUEGOTAINMENT, where I cover the hottest entertainment with an edge. And normally I do all of my horror coverage on this particular program. Yes, that's right, the horror show. However, for the month of October, I was like, I need to cover something personally from start to finish, because one of my favorite shows of all time is Tales from the Crypt. I love anthology horror with a passion, and doesn't matter if it's, Twilight Zone or Masters of Horror, anything. I mean, I just absolutely adore that particular take on the storytelling. But Tales from the Crypt, I think, is the greatest ever. And there's 93 episodes of this show, and there are 31 days in October, so it was perfectly timed, perfectly planned, as I like to say. So I like to cover the Bueno, the Malo, and the Feo here on ENFUEGOTAINMENT, which means I designate one episode as good, one as bad, and one as ugly, like just weird, like big ol' what the F, man. Yeah, that's right. And so the first episode will be the Bueno today, and this is one called The New Arrival, and it's very interestingly titled for the sheer fact that I'm not sure about the reference that they're making, in all honesty, with regards to the storytelling, but it's one that I saw as a kid, and it's one that captivated me then and still holds up wonderfully to this day because it's just so strange. So you've got David Warner, who is one of the biggest dramatic actors of all time, and I have like a laundry list of his to go through now. He's done stuff like Tron and Time Bandits, and yet he's also done all kinds of amazing horror work like Waxwork and In the Mouth of Madness, Scream 2, that work on Twin Peaks and Outer Limits. Most recently, he was seen for a couple episodes in 2014 on Penny Dreadful, but ironically for me, yours truly, Senior En Fuego here, I always remember him as the scientist in Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze. So sue me. Anyway, that's where he left his first impression on me, and that's what I will always remember, and it's just really odd how things go about in this story. It's very Bueno for just the strange factor, as I mentioned. He is a child psychologist who does a radio show that is dropping in ratings, and he's got a couple people breathing down his neck. He's got his producer, played by Twiggy, I believe is her name. No, not Twiggy Ramirez. We're talking Twiggy, who was like a British singer, actress, chick from the 60s and 70s. I don't know. And then he's also got Joan Severance, who is like the network woman who was like breathing down the producer's neck, and she is a real big old B, yeah, with a capital B and an exclamation point after it. But he has this woman who's been calling in for a while talking about her problem child Felicity, and we're talking way bigger than what John Ritter had to deal with, man. We are talking a chick who, well, it's one of the big twists of it, so I can't really say too much for the sheer fact that she is about as bad as they can come. And her mom is actually played by that creepy chick Zelda. Well, the actress's name is Zelda, but she was the medium in Poltergeist, and for my money, she has one of the scariest voices of any person ever put to film. I mean, it just puts chills down my spine. And so they decide they're going to make a house call to boost the ratings, and they're going to try to help out because good counseling always trumps bad parenting, as David Warner's character likes to say throughout this. And so they make this house call, and the direction by Mr. Peter Medak, who has done The Changeling, he's done Species 2, but he's also done lots of great TV work. He did Masters of Horror, the aforementioned anthology show Mick Garris put together that I mentioned. He also did Carnival, which was weird, like dark fantasy, supernatural, like period piece, really cool. He also did some work on Hannibal before, yeah, regrettably it was canceled. So his direction really adds an additional flair to this that is really cool. It's scary. When the twist comes, it's not at the end. It's there's another twist at the end, and the best Tales from the Crypt always have multiple ones, like various twists and turns that kind of keep you guessing as to what's transpiring. And so, yeah, this one is no exception in that department. Masterfully acted, fantastically directed. It's one of my favorites from when I was a kid, and it is still one of the buenos and still one of the best that I've ever seen. So next up, we have to go into the bad. That's right, folks, the MALO. And the MALO today is actually going to be an episode that, similar to in my previous installment, it really wasn't that bad. It's an episode called Beauty Rest, and it stars a younger Mimi Rogers when she was like in her prime. She had just done The Rapture. Everybody was all abuzz with her performance in that. I think she won an Independent Spirit Award for it, if I recall correctly. But she is a aging model that has just kind of never been able to catch her break. And her roommate, Kathy Ireland, who, well, Kathy Ireland is less an actress. I know she appeared in a few movies and stuff, like Necessary Roughness, I think, was one, and maybe she was in, like, Loaded Weapon 1, that National Lampoon film. But, yeah, she was always more so a Sports Illustrated model, and then she went on to do fitness videos and all that stuff, and wow, is she a babe. She has aged gracefully as well. Shwing shwing, as the guys on Wayne's World would probably say. So, yeah, she is the roommate who Mimi Rogers' character is very jealous of because she keeps taking these modeling gigs away from her, whether it's perfume commercials or, you know, whatever it may be. And so Mimi Rogers' character decides to, well, she's going to take some things into her own hands to try to start getting jobs. And she ends up swiping a job out from under Kathy Ireland. And, you know, this is another one that I can't say was a bad Tales from the Crypt. It just had to fill the void of the distinction. It was just not as great as the other two. The other two are just head and shoulders above it. But this is a good Tales from the Crypt episode. And it actually pairs Donald Longtooth, who was the guy who wrote None But the Lonely, which is one of my favorite episodes from this season. It was #1 in season 4, and it was actually that great performance by Treat Williams I talked about an episode or so ago. And then you also had the return of Mr. Stephen Hopkins, the director who did, well, he did one of my favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt ever, which is Abracadaver, which I have reviewed, and you can see that if you search through all of my my archives here of Tales from the Crypt now. But he also did Predator 2, which is a great film, underrated in my opinion. Ghost in the Darkness, Judgment Night with Emilio Estevez, like a very interesting director. Freddy 5, The Dream Child, don't get me started on that particular Nightmare on Elm Street incarnation. But yeah, he's a great director, and he does very well with the source material here. So listen to me, I'm actually, the MALO episode is actually very, very bueno. It's just not as good. It's a little worse than the other two here. So it just had to get the distinction, and yeah, the twist is, well, I guess maybe the twist is why I didn't like this one as much. It's more of a tropey by the books twist in the Tales from the Crypt, you know, I guess pantheon. But hey, it's still not bad, and I recommend at the end of the day all 3 of these episodes. So we're going to jump into the Feo now, the Ugly. And this is actually another episode which was based on a Haunt of Fear. We had 2 Haunt of Fears in this particular trilogy, and then we also had a Vault of Horror. So these were all like more on the spooktacular, less on the shock, suspense, crime stories type thing like some of the other EC books were. And this one is called What's Cookin'? And the interesting thing about What's Cookin' is the fact that it's more on the dark comedy side of things, first and foremost. But the bigger thing to mention is that it's kind of a graduation of sorts from Mr. Gilbert Adler, who at this point was, he had written episodes of Tales from the Crypt already, and he was writing them for the big boys, like he did Dead Weight with Toby Hooper previously. He also did Season 3's Yellow with Robert Zemeckis, so he was working with the big-time directors, and as I mentioned, he was also producing. But yeah, this is his first time getting behind the camera and actually getting to direct an episode. It's written by A.L. Katz, and A.L. Katz had also done some previous writing and assisting. He was a co-producer at this point. He did one of the earlier episodes here in Season 4, the one with Dylan McDermott called This'll Kill Ya. So yeah, both of these guys, they were kind of working their way up the ranks at Tales from the Crypt, and the Feo comes for the concept of What's Cookin'. What could you think would be cooking in a Tales from the Crypt episode? Yeah, human flesh, my friend. And so you've got Kristopher Reeve in one of his final performances, regrettably, before his paralysis from falling off of that horse. And so he is the owner of a slumping diner that is doing terribly. He's trying to serve squid to people for whatever reason. Squid McMuffins, I think they talk about at one point in the episode. But so he's got this They call him a drifter, but he's basically like the busboy slash janitor guy at their little restaurant that gets no customers, and played by Judd Nelson, man. Yeah, check that dude out. And yeah, we all know him as Bender from The Breakfast Club, but he was in St. Elmo's Fire. He's currently on Empire. He is a great actor who is still doing tremendous work to this day. And he comes up with this brilliant idea to, well, it all happens from their landlord, first and foremost, who's played by Meatloaf, and they decide, well, let's turn Meatloaf into Meatloaf, and it kind of spins out of control from there, as you would imagine that it would. It's a very Feo concept, but it's funny. It's very funny, in fact. As evidenced in particular by one thing which is uttered by Mr. Judd Nelson as Jay and Silent Bob. He goes harsh, man. And he basically says, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and we're all just different recipes of Alpo. Yeah, so that sums up the sick, twisted, Feo humor of this particular episode very well. This is one that I really cannot say very much about either, because these are non-spoiler reviews. They're just to get you excited and stoked to watch Tales from the Crypt. In my opinion, the best anthology series ever put to television. So I extend the grande gracias to you guys for tuning in. I still have a lot more episodes to make mention of. This was episode 15. I'm officially going to be crossing over the halfway threshold, and I urge all of you guys, Horror Show channel, man. That's what I do with Susie Von Slaughter, Cecil Laird, and Marcia Parker, along with various other amazing co-contributors from SWAT HD and Steve Wargo to David Friedman and various other wonderful artists and just people within the horror industry that I've got to meet and got to work with. So check out The Horror Show at the address below, thehorrorshowchannel.com, and then you can find me on all social media sectors just at Jaime En Fuego, as you're seeing that spelled below as well. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and here on YouTube. So until we get to talk more of the frightastic, that's right, the scarific, with you Sin Amigos Mañana, I extend a grande gracias and adios until next time.